You know what makes every outfit look better? The right bra from Third Love. Their bras make it easy to ultimate cleavage, a smooth look, or even stop your shirt buttons from pulling. They make over 60 sizes, including half cups you won't find anywhere else, so you'll find your perfect fit. Third Love solves bra problems, or what they call broblems. Real women test every style they make. Comfort and support are guaranteed. So stop settling for bad bras. You deserve better. Get your problem solved today. Save $15 on your first order with code podcast15 at thirdlove.com.
This is Below Deck's Captain Lee. Listen to my new podcast, Salty, with Captain Lee.
Don't you mean our podcast?
Yeah, I guess I do. Anyhow, listen to Salty with Captain Lee, co-hosted by my assistant, Sam. And we will be talking about the latest pop culture news and all the gossip every week.
So does this mean we have to talk by ourselves, about ourselves, or can we at least have some guests on?
I don't know, I find myself pretty interesting, but yeah, we can have some guests on, some of our reality TV friends, and some stars.
Works for me. Listen to Salty now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 330 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well. I said on TCAT that I'm having a great week.
That's good.
Just a great week. And I don't always say that. I can't always say it.
You can't.
But I'm being honest now.
Well, I'm glad you're being honest.
Speaking of TCAT, we have our 350th episode out right now, and it's on Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer.
Very good.
Yeah, it's a case that a lot of people have asked us to do over the years, and so we picked it for the big 350.
Yeah. And on Patreon, what did we do?
We played a new game called the Gibby Movie Game.
Yeah.
It was very entertaining.
Where you knock it out of the ballpark?
No, you did not. But it involved two of your favorite things, movies and money.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that. Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Sophia Rebdi.
Hey, Sophia.
Abigail Blum.
Hey, thanks, Abigail.
Suzanne Carter.
What's going on, Suzanne?
CR.
Hey, CR.
Kelly.
Hey, Kelly.
Aaron H.
Hey, appreciate that, AA Ron.
AA Ron. Corey Odenbach.
What's going on, Corey?
Mary Gordon.
Hey, Mary.
Wanda Addis.
There's Wanda.
Stacy Monk.
Well, hi, Stacy.
Ebo.
Ebo. Can't forget Ebo.
Gabby Scully.
Hey, Gabby.
Robbie Brown.
What's happening, Robbie?
Holly Burgess.
There's Holly.
Kathleen Frett.
Appreciate that, Kathleen.
Anthony Valentin.
Valentine.
Kitty Cat.
What's up, Kitty?
Holly.
Hey, Holly.
And last but not least, Ash-tastic and Peach jumped out at our highest level.
What a combo. Ash-tastic and a peach.
And I really have to say that first one slowly.
Exactly.
As to not mess it up. And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Tracy Evans.
Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah, thanks for all the new support, the continued support. We had a couple of great PayPal donations from McCabe's Costumes.
Hey, thanks, McCabe's.
And George Skyba.
Oh, appreciate that, George.
Yeah, thanks to everyone. All right, buddy, are you ready to get into this 330th episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
That's a big number. You know that?
330.
Yeah.
Yeah. 350 was a big number. We talked about that on TCAT this week.
Put them together, and what do you have?
680.
Man, you're almost as good as me in math.
Almost. We are talking about the unsolved murder of Beverly Jaye Potter-Mintz. In February 1987, a young mother named Beverly Jaye Potter-Mintz was brutally murdered inside her own home. Her 2-year-old son witnessed the murder, but all he could say was that a man came inside and hurt his mother. Investigators were stumped. Beverly Jaye had no known enemies, and it seemed like all the initial suspects had an alibi. Investigators thought that the killer was drawn to her. house because of a classified ad she had recently placed in the local paper. Beverly Jaye Potter-Mintz was born on December 5th, 1963. Everyone who knew her called her Jay. Jay married William Allen Mintz on November 26, 1982. According to Find a Grave, they had 2 children together. Their oldest, BJ, was 4 years old when his mother was killed, and their youngest, Andrew, was almost 2.
Just toddlers.
Yeah, very, very small. Jay and William separated in 1986. She lived in a house in Leland, North Carolina, suburb of Wilmington. Jay was working as a waitress at a restaurant in Wilmington and had recently started dating again. She was close with her family, especially her sister Jill. As an adult, Jill lived in Colorado, but she and Jay tried to talk as often as they could. It was expensive to make long-distance calls back then, so they wrote letters to each other.
Man, how time has changed.
I know. I don't even know how many people will remember that it actually was super expensive to call someone outside of your area code.
I mean, if you think about it, if things were still that way today, there's a good percentage of relationships that would not exist.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's no way they could, right? No one's going to have a relationship through snail mail or occasionally having a phone conversation, when everybody's used to instant messaging today.
Well, and with some cell phone plans, almost all of them, you just make a call.
Yeah.
You don't worry about the cost because there is none.
Exactly.
And even that has changed, right? I remember, cell phones back in the day, it was like, I think at one time I had 30 minutes a month or something like that.
During certain times too.
And you could only use them during certain times or they cost extra. I mean, it's just amazing. Jill told Dateline she was kind-hearted and a good person and loved her kids. I can't think of anyone who didn't like her. Why someone would want to do this to her is unimaginable.
And don't we ask that question a lot? Why do killers hurt these innocent people?
Well, we ask it a lot, but also the families of these victims ask that question as well. I mean, her sister's saying it. This is a good person. She was nice to everyone. She didn't have enemies. Why would someone want to kill her?
That's hard to struggle with because I think you're reaching for a reason, right? You want to know, there had to be a reason. Surely someone didn't do this just because.
Well, we've talked about it many times, but a lot of families have said, right, the not knowing is one of the hardest parts, whether that's not knowing where a person is, if they've disappeared, or not knowing who murdered their loved one or why it happened. I think those are all tough things to grapple with. Jay was also close with her cousin, Renee Braswell. They grew up together in Leland. Renee told Dateline that Jay was quiet and shy, but her personality came out around people who knew her. She was living in Dallas at the time Jay was murdered, but she visited often. She mentioned that her biggest regret was not answering a phone call from Jay the day before she was killed. And so there's 2 things there for me. One is that I've known a lot of people who were very quiet and shy.
Yeah.
Until they either got to know you or they got to know the group that they were in. And then you could kind of see their personality come out.
Yeah, they start opening up.
Yeah. And I do think there are a lot of people like that. And then the second one is this regret/guilt that we often talk about in episodes, whether it's, what you said to someone before they left the house.
Yeah.
And they ultimately were murdered or, died in an accident. Those are your last words and they weren't kind.
No.
You're going to have regret.
They're going to haunt you.
Her friend is saying she didn't answer a phone call. And then that would have been her last chance to talk to Jay before she was murdered.
Yeah.
I get that you're going to have to live with that, but all of that stuff is routine. That happens all the time.
It does.
It's just that most of us, when we do those things, don't have someone that dies.
Yeah.
right after whatever it is, we can't pick up the phone, or we're not home to answer the phone, or we get in a fight with someone, have a spat.
I mean, you call me an asshole about every time I leave here, but I still come back.
You keep coming back.
And, I'm sure you worry about it after I leave.
But if you didn't, I would feel really bad about it.
As you should.
Laura Hobbs, Jay's aunt, told WWAY-TV that Jay was real shy. She was real sweet, pretty. She was beautiful. She also said that she was a great mother and she loved her boys. So, like we often hear, people saying just great things about a person, who is murdered. And I used to say, well, what else are people going to say? They're not going to badmouth a murder victim. But in a few episodes we've had fairly recently, we have seen where people have said less than flattering things about people who have been murdered or have gone missing. A few months before the murder, Jay's cousin Angela and her young daughter moved in with her. Angela said that Jay was receiving unwanted attention from men.
Well, some men just don't get the hint.
No, and I think this is something that a lot of women have to deal with. Unwanted attention, unwanted advances, men trying to get them to go out with them. They won't leave them alone. Like you said, they don't get the hint. They won't take no for an answer. According to Dateline, one man wrote, "I love you, Jay," in their gravel driveway. Another man left a red rose for her at the restaurant she worked at. Now, nothing criminal here, but again, what does unwanted attention mean? And I think there are definitely varying levels, right? From someone's asked me out multiple times to all the way up to stalker type behavior.
Right. Writing "I love you" in gravel, it's up there.
Yeah, it could be viewed that way.
Yeah.
Good. We don't know what else that person did, but it was said that Jay was always kind to these men. Shortly before her murder, Jay placed a classified ad in the local paper to advertise a waterbed she wanted to sell. The paper was giving away one free ad per customer per week. So what Jay did was she placed one ad using her phone number, but the waterbed didn't sell quickly. So she placed another ad using her mother, Laureen's number, so that she could get a second free ad.
Hey, smart.
Hey, game the system a little bit. I get it. It also kind of tells you what time we're in.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people use the paper anymore to place. I know they still probably have classified ads, but there's so many avenues now.
Facebook Market.
Yeah. Seems like every local town has their own marketplace or Facebook thing or whatever there is.
Waterbeds.com. No.
Jay started receiving strange and harassing calls from unidentified men after she placed the ad. These calls were sexual in nature. According to Dateline, both Jay and Angela were victims of the harassment, depending on who answered the phone. And to me, that was always the danger of placing an ad, because most likely you were going to have to give out your telephone number.
Yeah, you're opening yourself up somewhat.
Whereas today, you could make a gmail.com email that really has very little connection to you whatsoever and converse back and forth with a prospective buyer that way.
Yeah.
Now, at some point, yes, that person is probably going to want to come see the item, but you're not going to be getting calls with heavy breathing and stuff like that.
Yeah. I'm just wondering what drove did they just dial the number to see if it was a female or a male, or were they thinking because it said waterbed that it was their opportunity to make sexual harassment kind of calls?
I don't know. Are you asking me to get in the mind of some of these very strange, perverted individuals? Because it's really hard to.
I know, but I was just making that attempt.
I don't know why most of the people that we talk about do what they do. Now, is this before caller ID? Because I don't actually remember when caller ID came around.
I think it was after.
Really?
Yeah.
So maybe she didn't have caller ID, or maybe she did and they just put up with the calls as opposed to reporting them. I don't know.
Or maybe they did the star something something to block their number.
A week before Jay was killed, Angela noticed that she seemed upset. Jay told her she had a dream about a stranger trying to kill her. Angela told Dateline, after she was killed, I couldn't shake what she said. It's like she knew something was about to happen.
That's freaky.
It is. It's a little spine tingling because it's almost as if she had a premonition.
Yeah, foreshadowing. And I know somebody that can, they foresee some things, but it's not like this. And it's scary to think if someone said, man, I had this dream last night that a stranger killed me. And if that's somebody that has dreams a lot that are pretty close to real life, you'd have to be like, you're going in lockdown for a while.
Well, my wife has the strangest dreams of anyone I know.
Yeah.
I mean, they are so far out there from, running up a hill, people chasing her, people trying to get her. Sometimes it's me. And then she wakes up the next morning. She's ticked off at me.
She's mad at you.
If any of her dreams came true, we'd be in bizarro land. Jaye Potter-Mintz was murdered on February 23rd, 1987. She was just 23 years old. And it was the day before Andrew's second birthday. Andrew was home with Jay that day, but BJ was visiting his grandmother. Jay was busy planning Andrew's birthday party and preparing for family to visit. Her mother, Laureen, called her around 9:40 a.m. She told Jay that a man had called her about the waterbed. It was coming to her house that day to look at it and potentially buy it. Jay told Laureen that she had actually sold the bed that morning. However, Laureen didn't take down the man's contact information, and she had already given him directions to Jay's house. She told Jay that when the man showed up, she would need to tell him she'd already sold the bed. Jay said she would take care of it.
I think anytime a stranger comes, you would like for somebody else to be home with you.
Yeah, I think that would be ideal. But can that always be the case? And I would say no. But Gibbs, I just kind of want to look at this on the surface, right? As you look at what's going on, it doesn't seem to be that big a deal. You're trying to sell a waterbed. You put an ad in the paper. You've already sold the waterbed. Somebody's coming by to look at it. And when they get there, you're going to tell them, hey, I'm sorry for the mix up, but I already sold it. And that will be the end of it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we know that's not going to be the case.
Could you imagine being so upset that someone sold the waterbed after you drove however long it took to get there that you would want to kill them?
No, and we'll talk about it, but I doubt that's the way that this went down. But I think what's heartbreaking here is that this was Laureen's last conversation with her daughter. And again, going back to what we talked about, this is something that you see in a lot of cases. You have no idea when you're having what is probably a very routine conversation that this is the last time you're going to talk to someone.
Right.
Laureen stopped by the house shortly after noon to see if Jay needed help preparing for the birthday party. She found her daughter's body inside her home and witnessed an extremely disturbing crime scene. She was first tipped off that something was wrong because Jay's door was unlocked, and this was not typical of her. She was the type of person who almost always kept the door locked. So Laureen let herself into the house. The first thing she heard was her grandson crying. The sound was coming from a back bedroom. When she entered Jay's bedroom, she found her body on the bed. And we talk a lot about things that are unimaginable. And, for me, this is just at the top of the list. To find your child's dead body.
Yeah, horrific.
It breaks my heart to think about it. In 2014, Jay's cousin Renee Braswell spoke with the Huffington Post about what Laureen saw that day. She said that she saw a pillowcase on Jay's head. Her first action was to remove the pillowcase to try to help her, but she saw that Jay's throat had been slashed. In 2014, criminal investigative psychologist Dr. Maurice Godwin was granted access to the police files. He described the crime scene to the Huffington Post, saying her hands had been tied behind her back and a pillowcase covered her face. When her mom removed the pillowcase, she saw her daughter's throat had been cut so deeply that her head was nearly severed from her body. She had also been stabbed multiple times. And my thought is, Gibbs, from an investigative perspective, you would like it if no one disturbed the crime scene.
Oh, for sure.
But how can you ask that of a parent?
There's no way.
There's no way that you're not going to take that pillowcase off and see if there's something that you can do to help your child. Now,
Yeah.
She quickly realized that there was nothing that could be done, but you can't fault her for taking that pillowcase off at all.
No. I mean, and then think about after that, seeing that, that's the vision locked in her head forever.
Well, and so go back to the last phone call. Are you ever going to forget every minute detail of that last phone call? My thought is no. Are you ever going to forget that image of seeing your daughter in that way? And I would say you're not going to be able to.
No. And on top of that, if you think that the person that did this was the person you gave the address to go to your daughter's house, that's going to linger right in there with the rest of it.
Yeah. So then you get into guilt and all of that. Jay had been stabbed 8 times. The killer had tied her hands with a nylon rope. She had also been raped. Andrew was found unharmed near his mother's body. A woman named Jenny Mintz, no relation to Jay, called the police when Lorraine ran to her door with her grandson in her arms, screaming for help. Former Brunswick County Sheriff John Carr Davis told news outlets that Jay was killed sometime between 10 a.m. and noon. Dr. Maurice Godwin noted that the killer entered through a rear door. There were no signs of forced entry. Inside the house, investigators found the newspaper clipping of the ad Jay had put out for the waterbed. The listing was circled. Lieutenant Israel West from the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office told Dateline that investigators believe the killer left this clipping behind.
Was it the first person who bought the bed and eventually came back later after seeing her and seeing the situation at the house? Or was it the person that called her mom and her mom gave that individual the address?
Or was it neither?
Or that's exactly right. Yeah.
Things that we'll have to keep in our heads as we go through this case. But if the investigators are right and the killer left behind this circled classified ad, it would kind of lead you in the direction of believing that it's one or the other, one of these two individuals. Because if not, then you're dealing with a situation where the killer was someone else, but left the ad to throw the police off.
Yeah.
Which is a possibility. True Crime All the Time Unsolved is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Most of you listening right now are probably multitasking. Yep, while you're listening to Gibby and I talk, you're probably also driving, cleaning, exercising, or maybe even grocery shopping. But if you're not in some kind of moving vehicle, there's something else you can be doing right now. Getting an auto quote from Progressive Insurance. It's easy, and you could save money by doing it right from your phone. Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save nearly $700 on average. And auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Discounts for having multiple vehicles in your policy, being a homeowner, and more. So just like your favorite podcast, Progressive will be with you 24/7, 365 days a year, so you're protected no matter what. Multitask right now. Quote your car insurance at Progressive.com to join the over 29 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $698 by new customer survey who saved with Progressive between June 2021 and May 2022. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations. Angie's List is now Angie, the home to skilled neighborhood professionals. Angie is your home for everything home, and they've made it easier than ever to connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. If you own a home, you know how much work it can take, whether it's everyday maintenance and repairs or making dream projects a reality. It can be hard just to know where to start, but now all you need to do is Angie that and find a skilled local pro who will deliver the quality and expertise you need. Angie has over 20 years of home service experience, and they've combined it with new tools to simplify the whole process. Bring them your project online or with the Angie app. Answer a few questions, and Angie can handle the rest from start to finish, or help you compare quotes from multiple pros and connect instantly. And all of that means you can take care of just about any home project in just a few taps, because when it comes to getting the most out of your home, you can do this when you Angie that. Download the free Angie mobile app today or visit Angie.com. That's ANGI.com. Deadly Nightmares, the podcast from ID, tells the real stories of people stalked by serial killers and attackers. On every episode, survivors share the chilling moments they knew their lives were in danger and how they managed to escape their attacker. Investigators and family members close to the victims discuss the disturbing details of each case and exactly how they happened. These cases are the stuff of nightmares, but they've happened in real life to real people. You'll never drive alone at night again. So we wanted to tell you about Deadly Nightmares because we think you'll want to add it to your list. This is a great true crime podcast, and you get to hear from those very close to the cases. And I always think that that's an interesting aspect. I especially recommend When a Stranger Knocks. This episode is about 36-year-old Deborah Brown, who's trying to get a fresh start and relocates with her children from New York to Maine. She gets a new job and a new boyfriend, and everything seems to be going great until one night when a knock on the door changes her life forever. You got to check that one out. So listen to Deadly Nightmares wherever you listen to your podcasts. Andrew witnessed his mother's murder, but because of his young age, he couldn't give much information. Years later, Lorraine told the news outlet WECT, "All he could tell me is mean man hurt mommy. Mommy cry. He didn't know she was dead. He thought she was coming back." And that is enough to break your heart.
It is. It's very sad.
Renee Braswell said that Jay's mom questioned Andrew about the killer. Andrew remembered hearing someone knock on the door. He said that his mother looked through the peephole and didn't see anyone. She opened the door and a man came inside. Andrew described him as a white male and said the killer was a stranger. So obviously, I don't think that Andrew gave his answers the way that I just verbalized them.
Yeah, of course not. I think there was assistance.
Yes, and her mom was able to piece all of this together from what she got from Andrew. But this is good information from a 2-year-old.
Maybe Andrew didn't know this person or could remember this person ever at their house, but maybe
she did.
She did.
Yeah. And that is a very good point. 2-year-olds have a pretty limited pool of people that they're familiar with.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that Jay probably didn't introduce the kids to certain people right away anyway.
No, most single mothers don't, because, if you go out on a date, there's no need.
Right.
Till, the relationship has progressed to a certain point. I think that's pretty natural. Jay's family was both shocked and devastated when they learned what happened. They were supposed to be celebrating Andrew's birthday, but now they had to come together to cope with the loss of his mother. For example, Jill was traveling from her home in Colorado to North Carolina to attend the birthday party. She found out what happened once she arrived in North Carolina. So heartbreak all around for the family.
Sure.
And then, I kind of think of Andrew as he gets older and what's going to happen every time his birthday rolls around. He's going to be reminded of the murder of his mom.
Yeah, it's not going to be fun times for him.
No. The family thought Jay's killer would be apprehended quickly. Renee Braswell said, as quoted by Dateline, "I just knew they would catch whoever did this right away. I must have called 10 times that day. The hours became days, the days became weeks and years, and before we knew it, 34 years had passed and still no answers.
Boy, that's tough.
That's a long time.
It is.
And she said it very eloquently, right? Hours become days, days become weeks, weeks become years. And the next thing you know, it's 34 years and they still don't have the answers.
Yeah, you know, further ahead in the case.
The family told Dateline they believe that the killer would do the same thing to another woman. Renee said, "It all seemed very calculated. He knew what he was doing. I just fear he did it again. And after all these years, who knows how many more times this happened?" You know, we talked about that this week on True Crime All the Time. We talked about the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway. I'm sure there are people who murder once and for whatever reason never do it again.
Yeah.
But unless they're caught, I don't know if that's the norm. And I would throw sexual assault in there as well.
Yeah.
I feel as though if these individuals are not caught, then most likely they will probably go on to do it again.
Yeah. You know, we've done a few cases. I can think of one that we did in the Dayton area, unsolved, where the killer used classifieds to seek out their victims.
Yeah, and there have been many. I mean, there is a classified killer.
Yeah.
There have been a number of cases back in the day where killers use classifieds. It's kind of like my theory on why serial killers choose sex workers as often as they do. Part of it is because they're able to get those individuals into their car easier than they would be other people.
Yeah.
So with a classified, it's kind of the same theory. You really have no reason to go to a person's house unsolicited. But if they're advertising something for sale, well, there's your in.
Yeah, they're inviting you in at that point.
And so does a person just answer a lot of different classifieds until they find that situation that they're looking for?
Yeah, it's a strong possibility, right? Because you're calling up, it's a female, and maybe they have something that would require two people to lift. And you say, you know, is your spouse or boyfriend going to be there to help me get it in my vehicle? Oh, no, it's just me.
Right. So, or they go look at it first.
Yeah.
Assess the situation and then come back later. All scary stuff. At first, investigators thought the attacker could be someone close to Jay. They quickly ruled out her estranged husband, William, because he was in the military and was stationed in Germany at the time of the murder. And that's a pretty good alibi.
It's a pretty solid one.
I sometimes really worry about some of these alibis that clear people, because we often hear that much later, well, it wasn't really exactly the alibi that it was thought to have been.
Right.
Pretty tough when you're in the military, especially, to just leave Germany and go to North Carolina.
Yeah, fly back home.
Without the military knowing or having a record of it and all that. Now, does that mean you couldn't hire somebody to do it? No, obviously it doesn't mean that. They also ruled out a local plumber and a local restaurant owner whom Jay had recently started dating. Several other suspects were dismissed. The police were pretty stumped because they just couldn't figure out anyone who really had a motive to kill Jay. We said it, right? She was the kind of woman who really had no enemies. Her family said that.
Yeah, but sometimes you don't have to have a reason for someone to kill you.
What? But aren't those tough?
Sure.
Right? When difficult. You can't figure out the motive, when it's just random.
Yeah.
Those are very hard cases to solve.
And you think about how she was killed, right? Very viciously, her neck was slashed, almost to the point where it went all the way through.
Yeah, it was almost severed.
That's a lot of anger to me. And then to have the pillowcase over her face, why is that?
Yeah, I mean, some of that does kind of make you quickly think that it is someone who knew her, who had a grudge against her or something like that. So I think investigators thought the killer, was most likely a stranger. And probably the biggest piece of evidence that supported that theory was the fact that Andrew was left alive and unharmed. He also said to Jay's mom that the person was a stranger. Investigators suspected the killer was not worried about being identified, so he left the child alone.
Or, like we said, it could have been somebody she knew that was never introduced to Andrew.
But I get their thinking. Leland was considered a small, safe town, but the entire community was shaken up by the murder. The theory that a complete stranger entered Jay's home and brutally murdered the young woman was especially disturbing. One individual told the Star News, "It sort of took our innocence, our safety away."
Sure did.
And we hear that in so many cases, especially in small towns that don't experience a lot of murders. You have a big headline grabbing murder in a small town, and it forever changes that town.
Yeah.
According to former Sheriff John Carr Davis, gun sales in Leland increased by 300% after Jay was murdered. He told the Huffington Post in 2014, "It completely baffled us. We didn't have much crime scene evidence. The child was so young that he wasn't able to offer many details about who it was." And like I said, you're not going to get a lot from most 2-year-olds.
No.
You're just not. And it doesn't surprise me that gun sales skyrocketed. You see that a lot.
You do.
After these types of cases. Jay's case went cold when none of the potential leads panned out. Many years passed and the family received no answers. Despite the amount of work investigators put into the case, the two boys were raised by Jay's parents. Lorraine was traumatized by the loss of her daughter and from witnessing the crime scene.
What a tragedy.
On so many levels.
Yeah.
This 23-year-old young mother lost her life. That's a tragedy. These two boys lost their mother. That's a tragedy. Everything that the family has to deal with. I mean, it's just tragedy all the way around.
Yeah. And I don't think there's enough medication out there. If I seen something like that, for me to ever get a good night's sleep.
It would be rough. No doubt about it. Laura Hobbs, Lorraine's sister, told WWAY-TV that she talked about the murder every day for about 5 years. She eventually told her sister, "Lorraine, you're going to have to forgive that person."
Man, I don't know. I hear people talk about forgiveness, and I've heard some victims' moms and dads come out and say that they forgave the individual. I just don't think I ever could.
Yeah, there are some people who can do it and some people who can't. And I do feel like, personally, I'm the type of person who would have a real hard time with it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I have to go all A Time to Kill like Samuel L. Jackson did in that movie and seek, my vengeance or, anything like that. But to forgive, I just think that takes a level of strength. I don't know what the right word is that I probably don't have.
I don't think a lot of people do.
Laura continued by saying, "She looked at me horrified. I said, 'You've got to forgive.' I said, 'He's not going to change.' I said, 'You have to forgive yourself. You have to forgive for yourself.' A year later, Lorraine told her, 'I forgave him, and I feel like a weight has been lifted off of me.'" And I'm sure that is true. That statement that her sister made, you have to forgive for yourself.
Absolutely.
Is probably true.
If
now,
you can
whether,
do it.
yeah, that's the question, whether or not you can do it.
You set the gold standard for your business. Your website should do the same. Wix puts you at the helm so you can enjoy the creative freedom of designing your site just the way you want. Want someone to bounce your ideas off? Talk with AI to create a beautiful site together. Whatever your business, manage it from one place and tie it all together with a personalized domain name. Gear up for success with a brand that says you best. You can do it yourself on Wix.
By 1998, detectives were able to use new forensic testing that was not available back in 1987. They were hopeful that scientific advances would help them solve the case, but obviously, we've said it, right? Unfortunately, Jay's case remains unsolved to this day. Jay's mother, speaking with the Morning Star of Wilmington, said that coping with the loss of Jay had been even harder for the family since her husband William died in 1993. She told the paper, "Sometimes you have to take what you got and go with it, even when you can't understand it. I do know that hate and resentment can only hurt yourself." So I do think she's kind of backing that forgiveness is the better path deal.
Yeah, I understand it. I mean, it makes sense to me. I just wonder how hard it is to pull yourself up and do that.
Very hard. That's why I think I use the word strength, because I do think it would take strength, not physical strength, but like internal fortitude type strength.
But I think if you can't, I can see how it would just eat you up on the inside.
Yes. According to Find a Grave, William Allen Mintz died on September 8th, 1993. He was only 29 years old. His Find a Grave profile states that he died from carbon monoxide asphyxiation.
So obviously he decided to end his life.
That's what it sounds like to me. In 1995, Lorraine joined a group called Justice for Citizens, a support group for victims' families. The group was formed by a woman named Bertie Frank, whose teen daughter was murdered in 1994. This was the first support group in Brunswick County, North Carolina. Up to 60 people attended the meetings where members discussed pending legislation on victims' rights and gave families space to talk. Lorraine was able to support other parents whose children were murdered and in some cases watch their killers face justice. She hoped that she would get to go to court one day to see her daughter's killer convicted.
I mean, I think that's great support.
I think families need it. And as we've talked about before, who else knows better what you're going through than someone who is either already gone through it or is still currently going through it?
Yeah, it's one thing to just give support as somebody that's never been through it, but you can't really say, I know what you're going through.
You can say it,
but it doesn't really resonate.
No,
right?
It doesn't mean the same thing. But I wonder how hard this was for Jay's mother because the case is still unsolved.
Right.
She's helping all these other people, which is an amazing thing, but she's also seeing some of these other victims' family members get justice.
Yeah.
And she's not getting it.
So you think it could be therapeutic, but also
tough at the same time. Yeah, I absolutely do. She told the Sun News in 2001, "Bertie is a great help. Before, I had no support, just my family." She said the group helped boost her spirits. In contrast, she told the Sun News that her husband had lost all hope that Jay's killer would be caught. Lorraine maintained a sense of hope, saying, "Someone has to come forward. That's what it needs to take." And it almost sounds like a broken record because it comes out in all these unsolved episodes, but it is true. Someone's going to have to come forward and say, I know this, or I saw this, or whatever that bombshell is that kind of cracks the thing wide open.
We even talked about that on the Gary Ridgway TCAT episode this week.
Yeah, because someone made the decision to come forward. In February 2000, Jay's story was featured in USA Today. After the article was released, hundreds of law enforcement officers called the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office to inform them they had a similar murder case. Potential connections were investigated, but a killer was not identified. According to the USA Today article, the killer knocked rather than broke in. He brought gloves, a rope, and a knife, and he took the murder weapon with him. The killer also entered and exited the home quickly without anyone noticing him. Jay's house was located on a main road, and people were out and about in her neighborhood. According to Dateline, a roofing crew working across the street from Jay's house didn't notice anything suspicious on the morning of February 23rd, 1987.
Yeah, but are you really paying attention to everything going on when you're working? If you're walking up and down the neighborhood, do you really see everything? I don't know. I don't think you can say you see everything.
No, you don't see everything. And somebody knocking on someone's front door, is that going to really register? Probably not.
Yeah.
But my thought is, wouldn't the killer have to have been covered in some blood. I mean, not to get gruesome, but when you slash somebody's neck and sever what was probably both carotid arteries all the way down to the spine, that is going to be a massive amount of blood spurt.
Yeah, it is. I mean, unless he took his clothes off when he was raping her, and
yeah, there are some variations, but
right.
But I think if he did enter and exit very, very quickly, I don't know. It's part of the mystery of this case.
Sure, yeah.
Investigators didn't find the murder weapon or any prints. And like we said earlier, they really still have not established a clear motive. However, they did find DNA evidence at the scene. DNA eliminated suspects and persons of interest, but investigators did not find a match and the case went cold. And that is always the problem with DNA. It's great for eliminating suspects, and it's great if your offender's DNA profile is in a database
right
somewhere. But if it's not, it's really not worth much.
No, not at that time. But you could also say, you know what? It saves the police a lot of legwork continuing to chase down something that's not viable anymore.
And also, when I say, it's not worth much, I'm talking about the time period that we're talking about in the case.
Yeah.
Today, and I'm sure we may expand on it further later on, that DNA is worth a lot more than it was back then.
Oh, for sure.
Even if there is still no match in the database, because, now we're into this genetic genealogy stuff, and DNA is being used in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and as these databases grow, potentially you're going to get a hit.
Oh, the person could enter the database,
Yeah.
sure, or their family member could,
which is a more probable.
and that's what we're finding today. That is helping to solve a lot of cases. In 2006, investigators re-examined the case and resubmitted DNA samples for testing. All persons of interest were once again cleared. So, I mean, they're doing the work. You have to say that.
For sure.
They're just not getting the results they're looking for. In 2007, Lorraine did an interview with the news outlet WECT. She said, "I can't even explain how bad it's been. I can't explain how bad it was the day I found her either. It broke my heart." I get it.
Yeah.
There's no words to really express how bad that was and probably still is.
I don't know if I could even ask her, "Hey, how'd you feel that day?" I just don't think I could even ask that question to her.
Well, I mean, why would you?
Yeah.
Because it's not a question that's easily answered, I guess. According to Jay's sister, Jill Watts, Lorraine died of a heart attack a few months after her 2000 interview. She was 63 years old. She said that her mom felt guilty for giving the caller directions to Jay's house. She spent the rest of her life trying to find the killer. Jill told Dateline she lived with so much pain and guilt for the rest of her life, her heart was broken.
I bet it was.
And you wonder what effect that had on her lifespan.
Oh, I think it had to reduce her lifespan. That stress, that guilt. Yeah.
I mean, stress is rough on you. She also said that Lorraine planned to stop at the house earlier that morning, but didn't. She always said that if she had gone by there earlier, maybe she could have deterred the killer. She thought maybe things would have turned out differently. So, again, like we see in all these cases, it's the what ifs.
Right.
What if I had done this? What if I had gone there earlier, like I planned to do? Could I have stopped this really bad thing from happening?
Yeah, those what ifs will haunt you forever.
Jay's father, William Potter, died in 2016. In 2014, the Huffington Post spoke with Tony Cummings from the State Bureau of Investigation, who was retired at that point. He said that investigators believe the suspect is the person who inquired about the waterbed. And at first, I really struggled with this because technically, if you think about it, there were two people who inquired about the waterbed. One person ended up buying it. Now, I don't know if they ever came forward. Maybe they did. I never saw that in the research. But my assumption is here that he's talking about the second person that was given directions to Jay's house. I don't know that for sure, but I'm taking it that way.
I am too.
Cummings said that he did not think the killer was methodical or spent a lot of time planning the murder. Criminal investigative psychologist Maurice Godwin, though, disagreed. He told the Huffington Post, "I believe the individual had been stalking her. The person was comfortable watching the house and going in. He knew there was not an adult male in the home, so he had to be watching. The newspaper ad could be a ruse left at the crime scene to taunt investigators." And I think either one of these theories could be true.
Yeah.
The person could have been stalking Jay, could have known beforehand that nobody else was going to be there besides, 2-year-old Andrew, or the person could have stopped by, walked in the house, and immediately assessed the situation.
Or hell, it could have been one of the roofers.
Yeah.
Across the street.
Yeah, we really don't know.
Yeah.
Renee Braswell brought up the strange phone calls Jay received before she was killed. She noted that Jay received the calls after she got home, and the caller always hung up. This later made them think someone was watching her. Now, that does add an element to it. But we said she was getting a lot of unwanted attention.
Yes, she was.
So it's absolutely possible that the two things are separate. She could have had someone, who was enamored with her and for whatever reason was calling and hanging up, but didn't kill her. And the killer was somebody completely different.
Yep.
Or it could have been the killer who was stalking her, watching her, calling her and hanging up, and then ultimately struck. Renee also said that it becomes difficult to wait for answers as more time passes. The only thing that kept Jay's mom going, as long as she did, was her grandchildren. She adopted them and could talk and look at them and always see her daughter in their faces. They were a blessing to her, but now she's gone. It's up to us now to make sure the case stays in the spotlight. And every year we think this is the year it will be solved, but nothing happens. It's devastating, and we want it to come to an end. And I think these types of quotes are very important to read from the family members because it really gives you some sort of sense of just how devastating this stuff really is on the family. You go back to hours turn into days, days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, months into years. And I think that's what it's like, especially when you have these very old unsolved cases and the families have had to live with this for 30 plus years.
Yeah, long time.
Lieutenant Israel West has been working the case since 2016. He told Dateline that a number of people have been questioned, but there is no evidence connecting anyone in particular to the murder. DNA was collected from the crime scene, and he hopes this will one day lead to answers. There are persons of interest in the case, but no one's name has been made public. In 2018, civilian investigative specialist Jim Westbrook from the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office spoke with WWAY-TV and said the detectives hoped new technology could lead to answers 30 years later. Civilian investigative specialist Woody Kluge said they had 19,000 pages of investigative work and that they had some suspects but could not disclose any information about them. When asked if there were any new developments in the case, he said they had new technology and were working with a lab that does phenotyping. Civilian investigative specialist Mary Doncourt explained that a lab can take DNA and create a facial approximation of what a suspect looks like.
Oh, that's important stuff.
It is, and we've talked about it before. It's amazing stuff. So between some of the genetic genealogy and the fact that they do have some persons of interest.
Right.
You would have to say, for as old as this case is, there's a really good chance that technology is going to solve it.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of feel the same way.
Now, if we were sitting here and saying they have no DNA.
Right.
we'd be back to the old line. Someone's going to have to come forward and spill the beans. But you don't have to have that if you have DNA.
It also seems impressive that they have 19,000 pages.
Well, it has been 30 some years.
Yeah. But at least it shows you they haven't just been sitting, not doing anything on this case.
She also mentioned that they were doing further DNA testing with an MVAC system. And this has come up in a lot of cases recently. In July 2018, the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office purchased an MVAC system, which was described as a giant vacuum cleaner. Don Court explained they wet down the piece and it just sucks up everything. So it pulls out far more DNA than the old method of just swabbing. And it's come up because apparently it's very expensive and not all jurisdictions can afford one.
Right.
But, you know, if you think about some cases where they have not been able to get enough to create a profile, well, maybe this MVAC system can, where the swab was unable to. They were waiting on the results to come back from the state crime lab. But as of 2023, there are no new updates regarding the DNA testing. All we know is that the case is still open. It's been over 30 years since Jaye Potter-Mintz was killed, and her murder remains unsolved. Investigators and Jaye's family hold out hope that advancements in DNA technology will finally lead to answers, as we have seen numerous times with cases that are decades old. We're seeing it all the time. And this, to me, is a case that has all the elements of one that can be solved using all these different types of new DNA technology.
Yeah, I think you have to feel good about it.
You really do. Because let's face it, there are a lot of cases that at the end, when we look at everything they have, there's not a lot of hope there because they just don't have anything that the new technology could even use.
Yeah.
But that's not the case in this one.
No, and kudos to the team for collecting all the stuff they collected and preserving it. So when
from the 1980s.
Yeah, so when the technology did come around, they had things there to use.
The people involved in the case also hope that one day someone will come forward with the information they need to find the killer, whether the killer is alive or dead. The family deserves answers. I always believe that. Anyone with information that could help solve the case can call Lieutenant Israel West with the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office at 910-253-2777. You can also contact Dr. Maurice Godwin at 910-670-2450. He's working on behalf of the Potter family.
So some good resources there.
Yeah, and I think as we wrap this one up, like I said before, I mean, to me, there is a lot of potential for this one to be solved. I always think everything is solvable.
Right.
It's just some I view as having a much greater chance of being solved. And I would put this one in that category because of the DNA evidence.
Yeah.
If you're simply relying on someone coming forward, well, they've had 30 plus years to do so, and they haven't done it. So what is going to cause them to do it now? I don't know what that would be, but DNA technology is advancing all the time.
Yeah.
So more and more cases are just going to be
solved
if they have DNA. But that's it for our episode on the murder of Beverly Jaye Potter-Mintz. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Gibby. This is Kathy from Loganville, Georgia. I was just listening to the latest episode, and I thought it was really, really funny at the end of the episode. Mike said, "What were you doing on March 23rd, 3 years ago? Could you tell me?" I was buying my husband's wedding ring at the mall. I know exactly what I did that entire day, but to be honest, only because I remember I was buying a wedding ring because I got married on the 27th. So, funny story. And Mike said he didn't have COVID yet. I actually had COVID while I was doing that. So, it is a funny story. Maybe you should have picked a less significant year or something to throw everybody off. But it was just a funny coincidence. So, stay safe, keep your own time ticking, and I'll talk to you all next week.
It is a funny story. I think if I'm going to pick random years, probably 2020 is one to skip.
Yeah, probably.
Now that I think about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people going to have recall for that year.
Yeah. I mean, if you got a bad case of COVID, you're probably going to remember the date. But that's what it takes. It takes something
monumental.
Yeah. Some type of milestone or monumental. She's buying a wedding ring. That's huge. Now, you're buying it 4 days before the wedding?
That's another story.
What's going on? No, it all worked out.
It did.
It all worked out.
Hey guys, this is Hannah from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, formerly from Fort St. John, BC. I'm actually calling because I was listening to one of your older episodes and heard someone else from my hometown leave a voicemail. It's not a super big or well-known place, so I thought that was pretty cool. I think you guys should look into the case of the Jack family. It's a semi-local story for me, and even after 30 years, we still have very little information about the abduction of a whole family. Pretty wild. Thanks for the great show, guys. Stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
I think you guys ought to form a TCAT fan club since there's 2 of you.
Yeah.
It's enough. That's all you need.
You just need more than one person.
Exactly.
You could have a fan club. You could have a fan club by yourself.
You could.
Technically.
Yeah. Maybe I'll start that.
Oh, I think you already have your own Gibby fan club by yourself, for yourself.
You saw the posters.
I did.
Yeah.
I think that was a little much to put posters up all over town.
Well, I was trying.
But I don't think I've heard of that case, Gibbs. I'll have to look it up.
Dive into that one.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be a really good one. A whole family is abducted and nobody really knows. So we'll take a look at it for sure.
Yeah.
But appreciate the voicemails. And that is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Dive into true crime on Pluto TV. Unravel the mysteries with Forensic Files and 48 Hours. Investigate crimes with Dateline 24/7 and Unsolved Mysteries. With thousands of free crime movies and TV shows, Pluto TV is the true home of crime. Download the Pluto TV app on all your favorite devices and start streaming true crime on live channels and on demand. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.